Hello again from Brazil. For this video, we're going to be talking about entering daily sales into QuickBooks Online. This would be businesses like retail stores, coffee shops, mechanic shops, anywhere to where you're tracking your sales with an external POS system, and then just entering daily sales into QuickBooks Online. And this is versus if you were to be invoicing individual customers throughout the day using QuickBooks Online. I have another video for that if that's your situation. But if you're entering daily sales in QuickBooks Online, whether you're doing it manually, which I'll show you how to do everything here, you'll still want the same setup though too. If you're also integrating your external POS system into QuickBooks Online, you'll still want to set up like this with these chart of accounts so that whenever the integration is happening, things are going where they should be. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating what's called clearing accounts. And it's just temporary accounts basically to where you're dumping that money or funds into, and then whenever it actually gets deposited into your bank account, then you withdraw it from that clearing account, hence the name clearing account. The reason for that is that if you're just putting all your daily cash, credit card sales, check sales into your checking account, whenever those deposits are actually being made, so the deposit will come from your credit card company, for example, maybe the next day. Let's say you deposit cash 2 days after that, and maybe you deposit some checks once a week or every day, whatever it is. Whenever you go to reconcile your bank account, if you're not doing this correctly with those clearing accounts, those deposits are going to be all out of whack and way messed up whenever you go to deposit or whenever you go to reconcile that account. So I'm going to show you kind of step by step. We're going to walk through this. You may already have this kind of checklist here. If you don't and you want it, let me know. Send me an email or something. I'll send it your way. But so first we're going to create the actual chart of accounts, the clearing accounts. And so I have the accounts we're going to create here, and then listed here is just the type and the detail type of the account. And then you can name them whatever you want for your particular business. And then we're going to create products and services, and then we're going to link them to the chart of accounts through the income account. So if you're not familiar with how QuickBooks Online works with this aspect, is so that whenever you make a sales receipt, you choose products and services, and then you choose for each product and service whenever you're creating it, which income account is going into. So what we're essentially going to do is we're going to create these clearing accounts, and then we're going to create these products and services to link to these clearing accounts so that whenever you enter the sales receipt, it sends that money, whether it's a check or cash or credit card, into the particular clearing account. Let's go ahead and get started. So we'll start with the chart of accounts. So we're just going to go down the list here. The first one would be cash on hand. And so I just have the name listed here so you can easily see in order which ones are linked here. And then in the bottom, I kind of have how to create it, and I'll show you that here. So if you go into your chart of accounts, which is in the gear icon, chart of accounts here, or you can go to all lists, chart of accounts, or you can go to accounting, chart of accounts. Many ways to get there. Let's clear that. And then you'll see in this top right corner here, you'll see the new icon. And so just so you have an idea, there's already a cash on hand account made for this particular QuickBooks Online account. But just so you have an idea, so if you hit new in the top right here, so for this particular one, we're going to make it a bank and then detail type. So I have the how do they label it? Account type and then detail type. Account type, detail type. So for cash on hand, we have bank, then cash on hand. Keep in mind too, the detail type usually doesn't mean too much, but we're going to do it that way anyway. So bank, cash on hand, and then you can name it whatever you want. You can name it cash, cash on hand, petty cash, whatever works for your business. Again, we already have one set up here, cash on hand, bank, detail type, cash on hand. And what these essentially are is these clearing accounts are buckets to where these products and services are going to be going into. These clearing account buckets. So the next one is going to be undeposited funds, and that is going to be an other current asset, undeposited funds. So we can search really quickly to see if we have one set up, and we do. And so we have other current assets, undeposited funds. If you're setting up a new one, you hit new, and then you scroll down to other assets. I'm sorry, it should be, where is it? Other current assets, and then undeposited funds. And then you can name it whatever you want, undeposited funds, and then you save and close. Then we have credit card clearing accounts, which is going to be an asset. So other current assets, then other current assets. One thing to keep in mind here is that you may need to create multiple credit card accounts. So if you're taking, or this can be used too, so let's say, for example, you're also taking payments through Stripe or PayPal. This is how you would set up that clearing account as well. Or let's say you're taking Visa in one system and then Amex, American Express in another. You're going to want to separate those. The way to determine how separate you need it to be is how it's being deposited into your banks. So if Amex transactions are being deposited into your bank on a daily basis, and then Visa transactions, credit card transactions are also being deposited separately on a daily basis, then you need two different clearing accounts for that. You can try to get away with the same one and just have a bulk credit card clearing account, but that's where things can get messy and it makes it a little bit harder to troubleshoot and reconcile if you're trying to find where a mistake was made. So it's a lot easier to separate them. And so to do that, you go to new again, and then you can just do other current assets, other current assets. And then so if you're just doing bulk, you can name it credit card clearing. Again, if you want to do PayPal, Stripe, Amex, whatever it is. For this particular example, just to simplify things, we're just going to make one credit card clearing account, but just know that you can, do this for multiple different options. In a lot of cases, you're going to need to. But for now, we're just going to create this credit card clearing account, so we can save and close that. And now we have a sales tax payable, which will be a current liability. You may already have one set up. So we do not. Or let's see, tax. No, so this is a tax expense. This is, so it kind of depends business to business. So for this particular one, you don't want it to be an expense. You want it to be a liability. And the reason for that is, whenever you're creating those daily sales, you're not actually paying taxes every day. You're accumulating the funds and you need to keep track of it as a liability because you will be paying those taxes monthly or quarterly, probably most likely monthly. So we don't want to have this going into an expense account. We want it to be a liability account. So let's go ahead and create one now. Let's do other current liabilities. And then it could be federal, state, or if it's just a sales tax, you can choose a sales tax payable right here. You can keep it at that if you want, or you can name it, if it's a particular state, you can name it Colorado, federal, whatever works for you and your business. So let's save and close that as a sales tax liability. And then we're going to have a overshort account, which is going to be an expense. So if you create new, let's make sure that we don't have one set up already. I don't think we do. No, so we're going to go to expenses. And then we can just do other business expenses. Again, doesn't matter too much what the detail type is. And then we can name this over short. And last one would be a sales. You very likely might already have this set up, but if not, you definitely want to make sure it's in there. So if you scroll down, you'll see in this type here, you'll see the income accounts. So you might have just a general sales. You might have to break it down. There's other videos I have of breaking down different types of products and services with different types of sales incomes. But for this particular example, we're just going to throw everything into this sales. But just make sure you have some sort of sales income account set up that works for your business. If you don't, you can hit new, income, and then whether it's a service, product, or other, and then you can name it whatever it is. So you can just do daily sales, for example, whatever works for your business. But we already have the sales account set up, so we're not going to do that here. So then now we have all the buckets, the chart of account clearing accounts created. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go through and create different products and services, which is what's actually going to be on each daily sales receipt. And then we're going to link them using what QuickBooks calls an income account to these buckets, these chart of account clearing accounts that we just created. So in order to get there, there's a few ways. So you can hit the gear icon here. You can go to all lists, and then you'll see products and services. To create new ones, you hit this new here in the top right. For all of these, unless you're selling products as well, we'll just make them services. So you can hit new and then service. And then what I did here, similar to up here, is that this is the name. You can change the name, whatever works for your business. And then, so we're going to have the name, And then the description here, which is going to show up in the sales form, which really for our purposes is just going to help us not mess up whenever we're creating the daily sales receipts. So we can make notes here, which we will, and I'll show you how to do that. And then this income account is very important to make sure that we don't pass this up. This is going to be those links that I talked about, the income accounts that we just set up right here. So let's go through a few. So first, let's create a cash product. So just name this cash. And then, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a negative in parentheses. And the reason for that is, and this will make sense once we actually start making the actual daily sales receipts, is that the way this is going to work is that tax over shorts, if they're over actual sales, things like that, those are all going to be positives in the daily sales receipt. And then all the actual payment types are going to be negatives: cash, check, credit card. And then what's going to happen is this is going to zero out. So it's going to be a $0 sales receipt. But you want to make sure that you're doing that correctly. So whenever we put the minus here in the description, and you'll see whenever we go to create that sales receipt, it'll have a minus here. So it'll be a little reminder, and you'll know, even though we're going to set up some recurring transactions, it'll be another reminder to definitely make that a negative. Another very important thing, like I said, income account. So for the cash, we put negative here, and the income account, cash on hand, which we created before up here, the bank account. So we can choose here. We can either just start typing, or if you want, you can hit the down arrow and then find it. So cash on hand right here. That's the income account that we just created. And then you can either save and close it. We're going to do save and new. And next, so we're going to be creating the checks account. So we can just name this checks. Description, again, make it a negative. If you want to make things even clearer, is you can put something like individual checks, enter. And this is, again, just notes to yourself. So you can either enter the full amount of checks during the day. I'd recommend doing it individually, but depends on your volume, of course. But if you're getting 2 or 3 checks a day, it'll make things a lot easier if you individually put those in there in your sales receipt, and I'll show you how to do that later. And if you are doing that, make a note so that you or whoever is putting in the daily sales receipts, you'll remember to put it in individually and not as a total. So you can put, again, the notes here, and then that income account, as we see here, is going to be undeposited funds, which we created before. So let's go ahead and do that. Undeposited funds, save and new. So now we're going to create those credit card clearing accounts. For today, we're just going to do one. We can just name it CC credit card. Again, if you're doing PayPal, Stripe, Amex, Visa, however many you're putting in the different buckets, you can create as many services, well, as many products as you need. For today, we're just going to make a CC for credit card. And again, it's going to be a negative. And that's going to go into the credit card clearing account that we created. Credit card clearing. So save and new that. Next is going to be the sales tax. So you can just put tax, sales tax, whatever works for you. So you can, again, break this up, federal, state, whatever it looks like for your business. That is going to be a positive. Let me double check that, yep. And then that's going to go into the clearing account. Again, make sure that it's going into the liability payable account, not the expenses account. That'll mess up your deposits and everything. So the liability account, that's very important. Let's save and new that. Over short. Same procedure. Now this one will be a plus or a minus, depending on whether you're over or you're short. It's going to go in the over short expense account. Save and new. And then if you don't have a sales account set up, here's where you do your sales. So you can do sales and then the income account, whatever it is. If you already have one set up, I believe. Yep. So we're not going to do that. But if you don't have a sales account set up, or if it's not how you need it to be, now's a good time to do that. So now that we're done with this stuff, now I can show you how to actually create the sales receipt. We're going to make it a recurring transaction so that you can go through and quickly have everything ready to go, a template for you every day. So you don't have to go through every single day and choose cash, credit card, and do everything like that. So I'll show you that now. So if you go into the gear icon and then lists, again, it's right here. But if you just remember to go into all lists, you'll see this recurring transactions here. And then we're going to make it a sales receipt. New transaction type, sales receipt. Then okay. We can call this daily sales, call it whatever you want. So we're going to make it unscheduled. And the reason for that is if it's scheduled, it automatically creates every day. And we're just going to have ones and zeros and negatives in here. So you don't actually want it to be creating actual transactions. You just want to have it so that the template is made for you to go in and put in the numbers yourself. So definitely make sure to have this as unscheduled. Another thing that you're going to want to set up, and you can do it here if you don't have it already, is just a daily sales customer. And if you don't, you can hit the down arrow here, add new. And once it loads, you can just type in daily sales if you don't have one set up. But we do, so we're just going to type in daily sales. So we don't need email or anything. If you're doing stores, you can make it, daily sales North Store, South Store, whatever it is, and you can change it here. If you're doing tags, things like that, you don't have to worry too much right now about the deposit to, because we already know what each individual account is going to be depositing into, and it's going to be a $0 transaction. So we don't have to worry too much about the full sales receipt and where it's going, because again, it's going to be $0. Okay, so now let's get into actually creating the daily sales receipt in terms of the products and services. So whenever you go to service date, if you hit T on your keyboard, QuickBooks Online will automatically make it for today. Just a little shortcut tool for you. So you can hit T and then tab over, and then you have a product and service. So we're going to create first. I kind of like doing it the positives first and then the negatives. You can set this up however you please. Really doesn't matter. But so I like doing the sales first, for example. So that product service we made of sales, let's do that first. And then, so this was already made and we didn't do it before, but usually like we were saying, and you'll see in the next couple products and services, that description we put in will show up here. So we're just going to have that say a plus, a positive, of course. And then we're not going to put any rates in right now because this is just going to be the template. Now let's go to, let's say we do sales, and then we put in the tax. And see that there it showed up as the plus. Let's do overshort last. So let's say now we're doing the payments, which are going to be negatives. T, checks. T for today, tab, credit card, CC. T for today. Let's see what else. Overshort. So now we have this set up, and of course too, it's going to be different for different businesses. So you may have some extras. You may have gift cards, for example, which will be set up in the same process as the liability clearing account. So you might have more than one credit card clearing account, like I said, Stripe, PayPal. But just so you get the general idea of how to do this, and you can customize it for your particular business. And then what you're going to do is just save the template. Whenever you go to use this, you can either go through and go to the gear icon and then recurring transactions, which will bring you to this screen. Then you can hit use. Or you can just go ahead and hit use if you're using Google Chrome, and then bookmark it. You can call it daily sales or whatever, and it'll show up right here. So you can just go in, hit the bookmark, and it'll bring you to the screen. And then all you got to do is just plug in the numbers. So now let's go ahead and use this template to actually create an example sales receipt, so you see kind of how that workflow works. So all this stuff is how it should be because we created it like that way in the template. One thing you definitely want to change, of course, is the sales receipt. One cool thing though is that if you do this once a day and it's the 22nd, the next day you go and to do this, it should show up as the 23rd. Or you can use that trick like I said, hit the date and then hit T, and it'll automatically bring it to today's date. Sales receipt number, if you want to change that, like I said before with the custom numbers, if you want to make it by the date, for example, you can do that here. And of course, if you're doing sales, you can create, a North Store, South Store, different kind of template. And you can choose that here, but that'll already be done in the template, like I mentioned before. So let's go through an example here of a daily sales. Now that we have the correct quantities set up, I went through before and everything was positive and it didn't balance out. So that's why I forgot to do that. All we got to do is just put in the numbers and the rate. So let's say we had $1,000 in sales. $50 of that was tax payable. let's say $300 if it was cash. Now here's where I said before, in this example, let's say that we got 2 checks that day. So we can put in check number 123, Bob, at a rate of $50. And the second check was check number 1243 for Tammy for another $50. And then, so if we had 2 checks and we're doing it individually, then like I said before, we can just hit the trash can here and just delete that third check line item. And now it's our credit card sales. So for this one, so you're going to be looking at your daily summary in your POS system most likely, so you'll know where your credit card sales should be. So let's say, for example, this was actually $648 for credit card. And now you'll see here, so again, we want this to be 0. That's our ultimate goal. And so we see that we have $2 here, so it's out of balance. So we have more sales and tax liability than we actually have with payments. And so what we need to do, so we're $2 short, basically. So what we need to do, since we're short, is make this a negative $2 short. So that shows the negative $2 here. So now we're at that golden $0 total balance. And then you would save and close that. And that's how you would enter it on a daily level. And so now, just so you see, let's go into the chart of accounts, just so you see that those clearing accounts are getting money thrown into them from that transaction. So the cash on hand, we have the $300 now, which was the $300 that we just collected for that day for our sales. The credit card clearing has $648 in the credit card clearing account, and so forth. You get the idea. And so sales tax payable, $50 sales tax payable, and so on. And we also have the sales. If you run the report on that, you should see the $1,000 sales. So 1122 daily sales, $1,000 in sales. So everything's going where it should be. And so you have an idea that in those clearing accounts now, they're positive balances. So we have $300 in a cash clearing account, $100 in undeposited funds, which is in those 2 $50 checks. And I had some stuff before, that's why it's higher than that. And so what that essentially means is, now that those bank deposits are going to be happening, and I'll show you how to do that now. So most likely your credit card merchant is going to automatically deposit those funds into your bank account. So whenever it hits your bank account, let's say you're going through your bank feed, and we had, how many credit card did we have? So you had $648 in our credit card clearing account now, and that was from that daily sales. Now this would be recurring every day, or accruing. And so now let's say that we are going through our bank feed and we see that a $648 deposit has been made by Amex, Visa, whatever your merchant is. $648 made into your credit card or into your bank account, let's say the next day, 2 days later. QuickBooks Online will probably see that and say, this matches this. So it's really good at that. But what you're going to do, you can create a rule in your bank feed to automatically do this. Is essentially you're going to create a transfer. And the transfer is going to be from the clearing account to your checking account for $648. So you can either create a transfer like this, or again, when you see it in your bank feed, there's none here, but you'll see a received certain amount, and then you can hit record as transfer, transfer account, credit card clearing. And that'll take the money from the credit card clearing and actually deposit it into your bank account. And again, too, you can set that up if it's very consistent. You can set that up as a bank rule. So when you go through your bank feed, every few days or at the end of the month, you'll see a bunch of deposits, and then you'll see a rule that they should all be transferred from the credit card clearing account. Now let's create a actual bank deposit. So let's say the credit cards are actually being deposited into your account automatically. Now let's say you're going to the bank and you're depositing cash and checks to your bank. Now if you remember, for that particular day, we had 2 $50 checks, and then we had a cash influx, cash sales of $300. Now, if we had it set up to where everything was going to the bank account, you can see where this could be messed up, because it'll show a bank deposit of $300 and $100 in your bank account, which isn't actually what's happening. Let's say, for example, that we wanted to keep an extra $100 in our drawer, in our bank drawer. And so we actually deposited $200 to the bank. And so the way to do that is if you hit new right here, under other, you'll see bank deposit. And this is essentially creating the bank deposit in QuickBooks Online. And you want to do this every day whenever you bring cash or checks to your bank. So you have the bank account here, the date that you're bringing it to the bank. And so you can either do this manually, or you'll see your daily sales here. So let's say that we're depositing, and this is why we want to do it individually, like I mentioned before, if you're only doing a few checks a day, because this makes it a lot easier. So let's say that we know that we're taking to the bank the check from Bobby and Tammy. What we can do when we're creating this bank deposit is we can just click on this and add it to the deposit. So as of right now, we've got a $100 deposit, which is including the check from Bob and Tammy. And what that's actually doing is it's taking that $100 that's in the undeposited funds, the way we set up from the beginning, which is a clearing account, and taking that money and then transferring it into the bank account. It's the same setup as we just did with the credit card, but it's a way to track it for separately credit card, cash, and checks. Now let's say that we're also, like I mentioned before, bringing the bank $200 in cash. So what you do is you add that to this funds deposit right here. So receive from, you can put that customer that we set up before, daily sales. And the account is the cash on hand, which is again that clearing account that we set up before for $200. And we can save and close it. So now, and this will be on a monthly basis, but just so you see, let's go into our undeposited funds clearing account so you can see. Whenever the sales are made on the 22nd, you can see that increase $50 for Tammy and Bob. That's because they paid us $50 checks for that day. So our undeposited funds clearing account increased by $100. And then whenever we went and deposited the checks, it decreased it by $50 and $50. So taking the money again out of undeposited funds and putting it into the bank account. Now let's look at the cash on hand. Now you see we have $100, so this is showing what it should. We have a $100 balance. The $300 came in, let's see, the $300 from the sales receipt came in here because we got $300 cash. And then we actually took $200 to the bank. So that's why we have this ending balance of $100. We don't want it to be set up to where the $300 from the sales are going into your bank account, because that's not actually what happened here. So that's why it's very important to be setting up these clearing accounts accordingly. If you go into your balance sheet, that's where you see those clearing accounts. If there's something left over for the month, what there usually will be. So this is where you'll see your cash on hand, and this is as of the end of October. Let's make that for today. So you see your cash on hand here for the $100, and then you'll also see too sales tax payable. So whenever we put in the daily sales receipt, we included the $50 sales tax payable, and that'll be right here. Whenever we actually make the deposit, or I'm sorry, make the payment, then we'll basically take it out of this payable clearing account and decrease it by a certain amount. So whenever we make the $50 payment, our bank account will decrease by $50, and then this clearing account, this liability will also decrease by $50.